What's going on, everyone? In this video, we're going to be doing the weekly recap of the stocked up trading floor. The market pulled back a little bit this week and is still pretty close to all-time highs. Jumping right into this week's recap, starting off with the high-risk scalps. On Monday, the 22nd, PATH had some good action of 203% gains, Apple 203% as well, TEVA 126%, APLD 119%. The list goes on, but of course, there were a handful of duds on Monday, I would say. A lot of stocks just, didn't really move that much or just moved up in an okay way. But there were also some, good stocks that had respectable moves, but nothing crazy like the Apple 203% gains or PATH 203% gains. But it is nice to see stocks like, let's say, QUBT move up by 44%, or Pfizer have its call options move up by 46.8%. So overall, decent day. Nothing too crazy, but definitely not bad. I would say Wednesday was the day of the week, which we'll get to in just a second. But looking at Tuesday, the 23rd, we can see, again, good action, especially out of SAVA, as those calls popped up by 356%. There was also good action with ASTS, as that moved up by 185%, as well as Amazon puts that moved up by 154%. HAL had some good action of 106%, and then, lots of good action of moves of like 40% to 60%, but there were also a handful of duds or plays that didn't really move up that much as well. So, okay day, some stocks did good, but others were more of duds. Looking at the 24th, I would say this is the day of the week, especially as FCX just really crushed it. These FCX put options moved up by 441%, which is crazy by itself, but RIOT also had like a very good move of 359%. IREN as well, good move, 150%. Baidu 130%, Pinterest 124%, JD 121%, FSLR 86%, PDD 74%, BABA 66%, RKLB 63%, and there were, you could say, 3 stocks that moved like okay, or you could say 4 stocks that moved just like okay or were duds. But I would say the majority of the action on Wednesday was pretty solid, especially with FCX and Riot. So that was nice to see. Looking at the 25th, decent action. I wouldn't say it was as crazy as Wednesday, but as we can see, MSTR, great move of 396%, MP 178%, IBM 160%. The list goes on and on. Of course, there were a handful of stocks that were just duds or didn't really move that much, and there were a lot of stocks that had, pretty good moves of 40%, 46%, 57%, 62%, 97%. So definitely no complaints. And then closing out the week on Friday, CROX had some good action of 270%. ZOM had some decent action of 42%. But besides that, I would say it was mostly like a dud and choppy. Looking at the action from Friday, it was kind of like a choppy day with the PCE data. Not too much momentum in either direction. Looking at the pullbacks for the week, as always, these setups tend to not be as explosive, but they do tend to be smoother and easier to trade. And basically because the best setups just don't pull back, you typically, just have setups that are a little bit slower and smoother. MSTR on the 25th was really good, though. 490% pop was pretty crazy, as well as the Oracle and Tesla action as well. So no complaints there. Nothing like too crazy, though, on Friday. And then looking at the Theta recap, all of these expired for max profit, which is great to see. I know we say this constantly, but basically, if you've never heard of shorting options before, definitely consider looking into it. Shorting put options, cash secured put options, and writing put options, it's all the same thing. Basically, it's when you sell to open a put option, and a lot of traders, when they first start with options trading, they naturally only know about like buying calls and buying puts, but you could also sell options as well. And learning how to sell options is not only great, like let's say in the case of short put options, where you can get paid to buy stocks for, a price you'd be happy to own that stock at, and especially if it's a stock that, you plan on owning for the long term anyways, and at a price that you plan on owning it for the long term at, getting paid to do so is advantageous not only by itself, but the options are theoretically a little bit more expensive than they should be because they have what's called a volatility risk premium embedded into them, which is an edge that works for you over time. Not only for these reasons, but also just to become more fluent in like how to better, like more effectively use options. It's definitely worth at least learning how shorting options work. So if you need any help, feel free to reach out to Tom, Hunter, Mason, or myself in SM chat, and we'll make sure you're taken care of. But besides that, thank you for watching and have a great rest of your weekend.